Welcome back to another Service Management Leadership podcast. We interrupted the normal podcast with a series of the third annual Global ITAM Summit. We have David Foxen, the red-haired, oh yeah, that's you, the red-haired Foxen of the ITAM industry. He's always sporting, a 70s style stash. He's ready to go. What? Check out the video. He's too young to know that reference, but you all make sure you tell him. David, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for that.
What an
ginger hair. I know, what an intro. Hey, no, really pleased to be back on here. Thank you so much for the invite. And just to clarify for our audio only listeners, I promise you, it's not a moustache. It's just darker on the top lip. I do try and grow it elsewhere, right? But the testosterone levels are not quite there, so I can't have this thick beard. So I just have to make do with this.
I hope you get all of the testosterone infomercials. All the spam goes your way, I hope. And so, it's just one of those things. So, David, I have started every one of these off with the same question. And so I'll ask you the same. What does good look like in your area? You can take it any different way because you're kind of an ITAM guy, a ham, Sam. What's good look like for you?
I'm going to throw that back to you.
Please.
Why are we only looking at good?
I see so much bad that I felt like it was overly ambitious if I went for really good or great. I think that in our world we see so much lagging, so much opportunity, that just helping people that are in those states understand here's what good looks like. And you could talk about great. You can take another step and say, hey, here's good. Here's what great looks like. It's more power to you, David. But I do think that a lot of people really struggle, mired down in their world, and they would love to be good.
Okay, so here's what bang average looks like. Okay, yeah, no, that's a great question. I think good, or we'll go for the more optimistic great. For ITAM in particular, it's very different depending on your organization structure. What looks great in one company may look really average in another, depending on the company goals and the strategy. But for me, great ITAM is all about visibility. It's about control. It's about transparency. But it's also about having ITAM at the heart of the business as well. And by that, I mean, ITAM's not just sat in a corner, right? Nobody puts ITAM in the corner, right? We are front and center. We are on project boards. We're on ESG boards for green IT. We're having regular communications with, key stakeholders like HR, finance, ITSM, obviously. Right. So for me, that good is having that kind of control, that visibility, and being, a core part of the organization. I don't think, you may get some answers from like licensing people like, great, that's complete compliance. We are fully optimized on our licensing. We have no risk whatsoever. But actually, great can be knowing where your risks are and having a plan in place to mitigate those and to fix them.
Let me throw another variable at you. You mentioned all the boards. One that I don't see enough ITAM involvement in is when dealing with vendors. And I think vendors are one of the biggest sources of risk and compliance and transparency and cost that people don't understand. And I don't mean just your cloud vendors. I mean, you decide to offshore something over to another state, country, whatever. There's risk, right?
Oh, massively. And I think supplier management and vendor management has always been a big thing in the software side of things in particular, because, license models are changing. There's new commercial agreements about, so ITAM and the SAM vendors in particular were very cozy, were very close. But now hardware vendors are becoming such a key strategic partner. The shortages out there are crazy at the moment, right? I've got clients that we've got lead times of like 3, 6, 9 months for things like Lenovo model, for things like monitors, or for things. Right, let me rewind that, but you have to edit out the vendor.
No.
Okay, well, I got clients whereby there's long lead times for a particular brand and particular hardware assets themselves. So, we're having weekly conversations almost with those guys to say, look, we need X amount of monitors by the end of the year for growth, for replenishment, for new starters, etc. What are the options? Our current standard isn't available anymore. What are you going to bring to the table that's going to meet our requirements? And I've never spoken to hardware vendors as much over the last few years. Before it was mainly software, and hardware was like, yeah, look, you said you're going to deliver it on Monday, you delivered it on Tuesday. Yeah, you're going to have to make sure that you deliver them on time next time. But now it's like, this model's not available, not going to be available for a long time. Okay, what's our alternative? Alternatives aren't available. It's like, need another vendor. We need another vendor quickly.
I think you have two choices, right? Need another vendor or start looking on the disposal market. And even though that's not sexy, it's, but I think that disposal market has been utilized more for these shortages than people understand or realize.
Oh, massively, completely agree. And sweating out the assets, right? If you've got a hardcore hardware refresh of like every 3 or 5 years, is going, well, hold on, there's too much happening out there in the world at the moment to facilitate that. But I think you mentioned the key word there, sexy, and I'm going to bring sexy back.
Please.
And something that I think that organizations and unfortunately the end users need to get over is that, money doesn't grow on trees for ITAM budgets. Devices themselves don't grow on trees, full stop. There's a barren of a forest at the moment. So you are going to get a device that's been used in the organization before. We've made sure that it's clean. We've made sure that it's functional. But yeah, sure, it may have a little scratch here. It may not be brand new and you have to peel off the wrapping, as soon as you get it. But that's life. We're optimizing our existing investment. It's still got 2 years left of warranty. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm sorry it hasn't got an Apple logo on it, but it will absolutely meet your requirements for your organization and what you want to do with it. And I think that's something that, depends on the clients, right? If you're a big brand or you have a lot of sales staff, for example, I understand. Look, if you're going into a sales meeting, you don't want a battered laptop or a battered phone or whatever. Get that. But then the rest of the organization, it's that culture shift of, look, even in personal lives, right? There's shortages on stuff. It's times 10 in the corporate world. You're going to have to, reuse stuff first. If you're not using it, we're going to be reclaiming it. We're going to be giving it back to you. And I think just quickly on the software bit as well, it's the same on the software side of things too. There are some organizations we mentioned just before we started about seeing what bad looks like. And bad is just free for all, right? There's no control. There's no governance. People are ordering SaaS software on their credit cards. They're just downloading whatever they can. They're buying stuff, expensing it back, and it just gets lost in the shadow IT. And I think now, again, with the whole, we've got through the initial bit of the pandemic, there's other stuff going on in the world. Budgets are tightening. So when you're getting these expense claims back for SaaS stuff, when people are coming saying, look, we really need this brand new 3D designer, it's $2,500 per year per user, we want 10 of them. You have to be a bit more realistic and maybe phase it in more. We can buy 2 now, maybe 2 next year, etc. So I think it's going back and it's stripping back that sexy and being more proactive with reusing what you've got.
Yeah, and I'll take that next step further for you, David, is if people keep pushing on that, the organization's going to say, okay, we'll go to BYOD and you can be responsible for bringing your own device. I mean,
imagine.
But I meant, though, if you're the organization, that is one option. If people say, because I've been organizations internally where people see their worth in the newness or quality of their laptop because they go to a meeting. Oh, I'm the new guy. Mine's all beat to Dickens. And look at those upper people. They always seem to have a nice new laptop.
Yeah.
In organizations, they go, okay, we'll treat everybody equal. You all get the same BYOD stipend.
You've hit on something that annoys me, right? The hierarchical. I get that you're a president, you're a director, you've worked your butt off to get into that position. But why does that mean that I have to pay more money for you for an iPhone 13 Pro Max or whatever it is?
Right.
it does the same thing as the ones that we're giving out to everyone else. Like, I mean, I get that you're that kind of seniority level, and I get some organizations have that mentality. But for me, if you want that, go buy it personally. You've reached that level, you can afford it. We're just going to give you something that can meet your requirements to do your job right. And again, it's a culture shift, but times are changing, man. ITAM's evolving, right? You mentioned it before. BYOD. I mean, it could happen. There's a lot of I've worked with some clients recently as well doing device leasing, mobile leasing, which again brings a completely different culture shift into the organization. Whereas before, if they had an iPhone and they got a sticker from I don't know, a cupcake shop round from the office, and it was their phone, they just stick the sticker on it and off they go. Now it's not the company's device, it's not your device, we're leasing it. You can't put anything on there like that. You can't put stuff on it, use it for personal use, install the latest version of Fortnite or Call of Duty. I'm showing my age here. Oh my god, the latest computer game or whatever. It's a whole new culture. And again, we as ITAM professionals need to keep up to date with that, adapt, evolve, so that we can continue to support our customers and our organizations.
So 2 things you said I want to push on in. Do we really want to ever work for a leader that sees their status in their newest iPhone from the company? No, because leaders, I think, can set a great example in that regard. First of all, at least I think I would. Yeah. I would want to give me the biggest junker, give my team the best one. If I need, like you said, if I need something, I'll buy it personally. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, leasing. You said showing your age, I'll show mine. 20 years ago, leasing was huge. And it was difficult for many organizations, because when the lease came due and they had to go find every spare part, every little bit, and to meet the qualifications to send it back, a lot of them did not keep that good of records.
Yeah.
That's just been there, lived those lives, have the scars to prove it. Maybe you were not, you may get to feel those scars one day, Mr. David.
It's an interesting one, because in terms of the return on investment, I mean, you get all the latest kit every 3 years. You don't have to worry about break fix. They'll image it, they'll asset tag it, they'll ship it to you, etc. But then at the end of the life, you're missing out on that ITAD part. You're missing out on the rebate of getting it back. You're missing out on being able to sweat an asset even longer, having some in stock, etc. If you're paying for it on a monthly basis, or, you've got a 3-year contract to consume X amount of assets, I get the appeal of it. I really do. And I think, these organizations that are looking into it is because they want to be at the forefront of technology. But from an ITAM point of view, in the background, I'm going, but we're making a good bit of rebate back at the moment, through ITAD. We're donating some to charities as well, which has given us good PR. We're really supporting the whole green IT initiative as well through recycling components. I've worked hard to get ITAD implemented. Why are you going to take that away from me with leasing? But
there's 2 other components to that. With the distributed workforce, it makes leasing even more difficult because you don't have those on your property. And the Opex versus capex is another component of the leasing, because most organizations want the capex and be able to write it off versus the Opex hit. Like I said, been there, lived that life. And most people prefer that capex hit than the Opex hit.
Having some interesting conversations exactly with finance on depreciation values and taxable benefits for assets and all that kind of stuff. It's like, we won't own it. It's like a car rental scheme. Like, even you've got managed desktop services as well, whereby you're combining the hardware and the software itself. So it's like, oh, okay, wow, there's a lot going on there in terms of stuff that actually isn't ours. But again, I go back to what I said, ITAM's evolving. Right, it's the scope is widening ever further. It's gone to the days where you just had to know licensing models to make sure you're compliant and know roughly what the costs are. Now you've got all these other factors, and ITAM's spreading its wings in the financial and procurement, and like you mentioned, supply and management. And we're just becoming kind of like this. We're just growing as a bubble, right? You throw FinOps in there as well, and Oh, it's just epic, man. It's just growing. It's epic. New stuff to learn, Jeffrey. Come
It
on.
is. It is. And I will say that it should also help its prominence. So we've talked about what good is and what great is. What are some steps organizations can take to move the needle towards good, maybe past good to great?
So, great question. I think again, showing how ITAM has evolved. Back in the day, I'm sure you'd have had someone on here saying, "Hey, invest in an ITAM tool. That will massively help you get from mediocrity and averageness into greatness because it will automate effective license positions for you and it will show you where your risks are." Um, and I've worked with so many clients now that getting the ITAM tool is like the final piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Getting to good, we'll use good rather than great, first of all. Getting to that stepping stone of good is exactly what we said before. It's getting that control in place, first of all, because normally if you're average, below average, just a shambles, it's because you've got no control. It's the wild, wild west. You've got no kind of processes for requesting new hardware. The software estates just completely shadow. You don't have a clue what's out there until renewal comes or an order comes knocking. So always stepping stone number one that I like to do initially is to do like a gap analysis first of all, to say, okay, right, this is what amazing ITAM looks like. Okay, this is where you guys are. You can see the difference here, can't you? Yeah,
Yeah.
This is up here. You guys are like, down there. But here's how we're going to do that with all these different steps. First of all, look, we haven't got any amazing tools. Let's just get some interim processes in. Don't even have to be the ones that are set in stone. Let's just get some basic stuff in so that we can get control, get some comms out there to say, look, stop installing software that hasn't gone through information security or your technical design boards or architecture or ITAM, just an email with some bullet points in and say, look, ITAM's here now. This is the initial controls we're putting in. This is how you request hardware and software. This is how we manage the end of life of it. This is how we're going to track your consumption. Just baby steps. Don't boil the ocean. Get those key core basic processes for ITAM, software, hardware, and FinOps, whatever your scope is, so that you can start building that, start getting ITAM's name out there. Because if you just go straight in and go, right, admin rights removed, no more hardware purchases, nothing like that, you straight away, you're just going to be known as the police.
Right.
You're going to not make any friends. You're not going to influence anyone. But if you go in, start implementing some baby steps, get some processes, get some work instructions on how the process works, get a RACI matrix, work on that with the key stakeholders who are involved in that. And then ultimately start getting some quick wins in like the software space. You can show savings, or hardware, just go around the office and get stuff out of cupboards and drawers and just shout about it. Get people aware of it, get people understand on what you're doing. And as you start to add up on those baby steps, suddenly you'll realize you've got 15 ham processes and 12 SAM ones. And you've got some FinOps processes over here as well. And suddenly you've got the foundations for an ITAM function.
Right.
Yeah, admittedly, you've not gone in and gone, bang, saved $10 million on this renewal, bang, hardware budget halved for next year, but you're putting those foundations in. And I think that's what I really like to involve all of the stakeholders as well. Even if they've got no interest in it, invite them to the meeting, show them the process flow, show them the RACI, show them the instructions, the guides, consult them about an email you're about to send to all of their users to say, stop, installing software, go through ITAM for licenses and stuff. And I think, that very quickly gets ITAM's name out there. You've got some core basic controls. And as you go forward, like I said, you realize you've built something here. You've got a bit of a document library going on. Now we need to actually update these because we've moved on. The organization's moved on. They're more aware. And, you start building up. Suddenly the maturity starts improving. Suddenly you're reaching that good status. And then you're going, how can we be great? Right. Then you can take that next, you can jump off that cliff edge and just go all out and just go for best practice and, automated reharvesting of software licenses, constant reviewing of hardware models as well to see if there's a cheaper option out there, whatever it may be. So I think just in terms of getting to that good bit, don't try and boil the ocean is whatever I always try and go in and say, right? Baby steps. Rome wasn't built in a day. ITAM's not going to be built in a day. Just baby steps.
And I appreciate you going straight at process. And I want to add one to it. You also have to equip your people, both the stakeholder side and your expertise ITAM people side. because way before you implement the tool, you have to have the people side ready to go and the process side ready to go. Is that your feeling as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason why I'm such a big advocate for processes first is because it gives ITAM that standing and that foundation to be able to start making that difference and showing people what they need to be doing. And if you've got it fully documented, and then someone comes to you and says, how do I request a new license? Or I've got a renewal coming up, how do I go about doing this? You go, oh, great, thanks for asking. Here's the process flow. Here's all the stakeholders involved. Here's what I'll be doing or will be doing as ITAM to, go support you through that, optimize it, make sure it comes out the right cost center, etc. So straight away, you're giving the power back to the end user or the stakeholder. Say, look, we've defined this, we've agreed on it. Just in case you've forgotten, here's all the documentation so that you know what we're going to be doing for this. And then I think in terms of the upskilling, or sometimes it's not even upskilling, sometimes it's one poor person, right, that's been moved around different departments within IT and then just gone, you need to do licensing, you need to do ITAM. We don't really know what it is. You don't know what it is, but off you go. Good luck. Sink or swim.
Yeah. Tag, you're it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, absolutely. That's a training plan and a personal development plan is another favorite of mine. Something that when you've kind of, typically when you go into an organization, it's about stopping the rot. First of all, it's about, this is terrible. We need to do something ASAP. So that's why the gap analysis and start building out those processes. But then when you've started to have a bit of breathing space, then it's going, okay, well, what does your team look like? Okay, you've got one person here. What's their background? Well, they're more of an administrator. They've not really got the technical background. They can just about get through to purchase some Visio and project licenses or Adobe or whatever. It's okay, right? Well, they're going to be a key part of our Microsoft renewal. So let's get them some training there. There's loads of free training out there on like Azure, AWS, all the cloud stuff and FinOps, if they want to do stuff in there, just go and, block an hour a day and start doing stuff like that. But you're absolutely right. Building that personal development plan, building that training plan so that ultimately when it gets to it, they actually can become that driver as well. They feel more confident. They know what they're talking about. And they can have those key conversations with stakeholders. And actually, that is a very good point about upskilling. You just reminded me, right? So off on a bit of a tangent, but I was speaking to on LinkedIn to an ITAM manager who's, I can't remember what country. I think it was like a New Zealand or Australia or something down there, somewhere much sunnier than the UK. And they were messaging me about FinOps. They said,
that doesn't narrow it down at all.
Yeah, I know, right? It's grey and miserable. But anyway, so yeah, they messaged me saying, look, I'm seeing all this stuff on LinkedIn about ITAM and FinOps, but in all honesty, I don't know anything about FinOps. I've been asked to get involved in conversations, and they just straight up said, look, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm not going to understand the terminology. I'm nervous. I'm just going to make myself look stupid and not add any value. And I think I understand that nervousness, but when you're looking at new things like FinOps, which to ITAM is quite new, some people are still obviously having their eyes open to it. You start to see a lot of those synergies in there. And the language that you're talking in ITAM can easily be translated in there. So I think I put a LinkedIn thing about it. Just said, look, just go and talk about how you optimize software and hardware, right? How you're looking at consumption, how you're looking at different licensing models, how you're working on, budgeting for next year through automated reharvesting or by taking back assets from people that haven't used it for 60 days, whatever it is. It's the same kind of language that the FinOps guys, because they're looking at cloud instances, they're looking at services. They're even looking at, OS licensing in there if it's part of the service. Like, just go and talk ITAM, and suddenly you'll realize that you've got these synergies and this, the familiarity with FinOps. You won't know all the language and stuff they use, but you will absolutely be able to add value. And I think that's, again, it's not really a PDP or an education thing, but it's more of a confidence thing, right? And if you've got those skills and if you kind of understand a little bit about the new stuff that's coming into ITAM, then you can very quickly see that you can make a difference. And ultimately, if you do start having these conversations with people like FinOps, there's free courses out there. Suddenly you're on an AWS free course. Then you want to do a FinOps one, and suddenly you're on the FinOps practitioner course. And you just need to unlock that in people, right? So they don't feel scared to go into a meeting and feel like they're going to look stupid because yeah, we're all learning. Everyone learns every day. I go into meetings I haven't got a clue about. And it's like, look, I'm going to be honest here, not got a clue what you're talking about, architects, but I think this is kind of similar. Is this right? And then, they turn around and say, David, no, you're an idiot, get out. Or they say, yeah, that's the kind of route we're going along. So, it's just kind of building people up to have the confidence to have those kind of conversations. But hey, dude, I went off on a tangent then. I do apologize.
Well, we are always learning. I mean, like we are in this
Yeah.
constant state of change right now in our society
Yeah.
that the rates of change, I think it was David Cannon that first brought it up on the podcast, that the rates of change are speeding up. Like whatever the rates or cycles of change in your organization were, they're faster now. And they'll be faster tomorrow than they are today. And so we have to have that mindset that we are, whatever we're an expert at today, maybe passe tomorrow. And we have to be able to have that flexibility in our mind to be able to take that step to the left versus going deeper. So go ahead, sir.
I've got that's a really good point. So I got a question actually back to you now, Jeffrey. So have you heard of gatekeeping?
Yes.
So do you think that there are some people in ITAM, now not naming any names, absolutely, but do you think that maybe there's a mentality or some people or organizations in ITAM that are kind of putting the gates up around it to say, look, ITAM doesn't get involved in this over here. ITAM is purely focused on, hardware and software asset management, cloud stuff. No, there's a whole nother people in there. Do you think that there's the risk even of ITAM being gatekept, whatever, by people out in the industry, and therefore, almost not allowing it to grow? Because I've seen firsthand people turn around and say, look, that's not ITAM's responsibility. I don't want to get involved. And actually it kind of is growing into ITAM's responsibility, at least to have those conversations. But what have you seen?
I go back to this principle: we get what we incentivize. And these people that say that have been incentivized to build their silo, to build their fiefdom. And they have been incentivized by their leadership to do that, not to expand. Like if their job is to save X dollars or pounds, right? And they do that every year. And they're like, hey, I'm the best, you're rewarded, we get what we incentivize. But that doesn't mean now can you save us money and control risk? Now how are you going to incentivize that? And to your point, to get out of that silo, we have to broaden. I have this philosophy, David, and you could tell me how wrong you think I am. But every organization is becoming a technology organization, whether they like it or not. So thinking of ITAM purely as IT asset management, I think is it's a misnomer. That's just my view. I think we should be thinking of the broader technology asset management and how we can grow past those fiefdoms. Like I haven't promoted very much, but I recently wrote an asset management book, put out there. I called it technology asset management because I'm like, if you're a hospital, you don't worry just about the IT assets. You worry about all of the technical assets that help drive your services. Anyway, that's my take on it.
For sure. So does that mean, is that an exclusive, Jeffrey? You're changing the word ITAM to TAM now.
No,
it's going to be technology asset management. No more ITAM.
I just want to broaden our thought process. I just want to broaden our thought process that it's not just the assets in the data center or somebody else's data center, like cloud. I'm saying it could be your security cameras that you need to control. It could be drones. It could be anything. And we have to have that mindset that it could be anything and not just stay in our lane. I think our business stakeholders need more from us, if that answers your question.
100%. No, 100%. I think, I completely agree. I'm all for expanding ITAM out into other areas. If we can add value, then absolutely, why would you not want to? But ITAM as an industry has evolved so much, right? I mean, I've been in it, 12 years now. And in that 12 years, looking back, it's just gone it's so different to 12 years ago. And it's going to be, massively different again in another 12 years. But it's almost, for those people that are very kind of siloed and gatekeeping and their black and white version of what ITAM is, you're going to get left behind. Let's be honest, right? You're going to get left behind if if you're gatekeeping it, you're not allowing yourself or your role to grow, or your managed service or whatever it may be. You're going to get left behind, and the trailblazers and people are going to move forward with it. But yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. But I think you're gonna have to redo your intro, right, to the Technology Asset Management Global Summit 2022.
Hey, I'm glad with that. I'm able to adapt, David. But
Nice.
you know, the part about that is it's a mindset, right? You know, like
Yeah.
if we're too busy building walls instead of bridges, it probably says something about us. If we're too busy, how do I get my incentive versus do better for the organization? It says something about us. And so my next question for you, and I think you've answered it, so I'll allow you to summarize with this, but what disruption is coming on the horizon for technology asset management?
Oh, wow. Considering Technology Asset Management Global Summit only was born about 2 minutes ago, you've removed the gatekeeping already, Jeffrey. I'm loving it.
And David was the gatekeeper. So, you know, now that he's given up the key.
No, come on. I'm all for evolving. I'm all for maturing the TAM industry. God, there's going to have to be some name changes out there. So, disruption on the horizon from a technology and ITAM perspective. Definitely, exactly like you mentioned there. ITAM broadening in its horizons into things outside of IT assets. I think this has been going on for years anyway in some organizations, especially like you mentioned, hospital construction organizations, retail, etc. You know, that they have to manage non-IT assets in their CMDBs and AMDBs anyway. But I think, yeah, more of that, embracing that, opening your arms up and, you know, releasing your central hub for hardware out into the wilderness that is non-IT stuff is absolutely required. In terms of ITAM growing, FinOps, you know, I'm kind of semi late to the party on that one, as I only started really looking into it at the beginning of last year. But, you know, straight away, just reading the materials, reading things like, you know, Rich Gibbons is all of his posts and Kylie Fowler and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, I need to kind of look into this a bit more. There seems to be some synergies here. And actually doing it in practice then as well for some clients has been like, this is awesome. Like this is the natural next step for ITAM to start evolving and supporting the organizations. And I think, again, maybe less of a disruptor, but something that's coming back, something that we should have been doing, you know, the past 10 odd years. Again, you mentioned is that supply and management side of things, especially, like I said, on the hardware, simply because the world is a strange place at the moment. There's a lot of external factors that are impacting the ITAM world and the supply chain in particular for hardware, whether that's you buying it outright, whether that's device leasing, mobile leasing, desktop as a service, whatever, it's still impacting you on that front. So having those regular lines of communication with your hardware vendors, and actually from a disruptive perspective, it's ITAM having to know more about the hardware spec. You know, beforehand, you could easily get away with doing hardware asset management just by knowing the make, model, and some rough kind of, yes, an i5, i7, I think. Whereas now it's having to understand the spec for a monitor. You know, does it have enough ports on it? Is it 4K? Can it show our high-end, you know, design software? Can it show AutoCAD properly? Can it do this, this, and this? Or, you know, this touchscreen laptop, has it got the right number of pixels? And, you know, has it got the right RAM? You know, really having to go more in depth with your IT assets, and, you know, even wider, you know, printers and stuff like that now is having to adapt, having to accommodate to what's going on in the world. And I think as well, you know, finally, just in terms of the whole disrupting the ITAM industry is, I know you said it's been done before and it has been done, but leasing, you know, desktop as a service, mobile leasing, just straight up hardware leasing, or even, you know, leasing the whole end-to-end life cycle and the management of the hardwares. How is your organization going to cope with that? What processes are you going to have to tweak in order to make that work? You know, what kind of culture change you're going to have to implement to your users to say, look, we leased in this, we got to give this back after 3 years. You can't destroy it, you can't drop it. And then what happens if you can't find everything you leased? What are the penalties?
Exactly.
And so I think, as you know, I'm seeing more and more organizations at least have that conversation about leasing their hardware equipment, or even doing that full service of having the hardware and their M365 all in one all in one kind of managed service. I think that's going to be disruptive because as we're looking to support the planet more with green IT, be going on to ESG boards, for example, on how we're doing IT asset disposition, what that equates to in terms of supporting the environment, what we're recycling. If you're then going down the leasing route, you're still actually having an impact because you're giving stuff back, you're not hoarding it. But how does that support your green initiatives? How does that support your green IT and ultimately your reporting as well? So look, there's loads of stuff out there, right? There's so much stuff that is going to have a positive, but maybe scary impact on ITAM because you're going to have to broaden your mind. You're going to have to learn some new stuff. There's going to be some new terminology, new acronyms, right, Jeffrey, like TAM for technical asset management. But look, ITAM has been disruptive over the past 10, 12 years. We've evolved, we've managed, we're talking about things we never thought we'd talk about. And when we do this leadership thing in 10 years' time, we're going to look back at this and go, God, we didn't have a clue. This is so broad now. We've got all this new stuff that we're managing.
Yep. And it's, like I said, the rates of change are picking up. You said last 12 years. Yeah. I think the next 4 will have more change than the last 12. And just think about even just the thought of what sustainability looks like will change it. It'll be a big disruption, not to mention cloud and all that other stuff. And
sure,
because 12 years ago, we didn't care how we disposed of things. Now we care.
Some people still don't.
I know. I can't. I have many stories that I can't share on the air. Many. And
you'll have to do. Do you know? You'll have to do the Global ITAM Summit After Dark kind of version, where it's like post.
Saying, man, like back in the day, and there's some big companies that we would be shocked. And now, it's kind of like at the beginning of this pandemic. There were companies that said, we love our people, and then furloughed them. And now saying, we love our people. And they're like,
get back in the office now. Yeah.
Maybe people forgot, and that's how it is with this, is that, it doesn't take too much research now to go back and find that. So David, it's been great. It's been great having you on, and thank you. And as I tee you up, or do you have any parting words? Is there anything you want to promote, like saying beast or something, or maybe that mustache that you'd like?
It's not a mustache. There's definitely stubble on there. I promise you, it's not just a mustache. Audio listeners, there's a proper.
I'll make sure I get better. I get a better monitor quality, more pixels for you.
I think it's because I'm sat by a window as well. It's just accentuating the mustache.
Oh, yeah.
Parting comments. None. Just keep loving ITAM, really. I mean, just love ITAM. Look, I mean, I think fortunately at the moment work is very busy. I'd love to promote Sam Beast, but I physically am slammed for time at the moment. But just give me a follow on LinkedIn, and if you find my posts annoying, just unfollow me again. Just trying to spread the ITAM love to everyone, wherever you are.
Me too.
And it's not a mustache, it's a full beard.
All right. I'll take your word for it. Even though my my laptop's not 4K to be able to pick up those 3 hairs for you.
Boom.
All right. So David, it's been great having you on. Thank you for joining us. And since you are so busy, taking this time to share your knowledge with everybody, ITAM is growing. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is, so our look at ITAM, how we view it, how we try to control it, how we try to maximize it, has to adapt as well. Is that your take as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like I think we touched on it quite a bit already, but let's not gatekeep. Let's keep evolving. Let's keep expanding. Let's keep talking to our stakeholders and seeing how their area is evolving. Because ultimately, it'll be for the good of ITAM, and it'll be the good for you as an ITAM professional as well.
Oh yeah. Well, have a great one, David. Thank you for this is probably our most jovial one. And so thank you, and thank you, audience, and hope everybody has a great day. Bye.
Thank you very much.